folks, and welcome back to my channel, and this is my December wrap up. It's a little bit late, sorry, but you know, that's how it goes. So I read 5 things in December, completed 5 things in December. I'm going to start with actually what I read last, because it's the only digital work in December, and that is on my Kindle. I read Uncanny Magazine issue 11? Yes, issue 11. So that's the July to August 2016 issue. Yeah, so I always enjoy Uncanny Magazine. I'm just thinking this particular issue, I quite enjoyed the first 2 stories, 170 Storms by Aliette de Bodard. That is a science fiction story. It's one of her stories that involves ships that are also people, and people that are sort of plugged into ships. And it was a story of family and survival and, you know, worrying about the future and that kind of thing. But it was still quite enjoyable. And also El Cantar of Rising Sun by Sabrina Volius. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce that, but it was a slightly odd story that was sort of written partly in prose and partly in lyrics, I think, and it was a story that is about gang affiliations, about the cycle of violence and people trying to get outside the violence, and Latino culture, that kind of thing. It was really quite interesting. I can't even really describe exactly what happened. It's been a while, like it's been a month or something since I read it. So, but it was really interesting. I quite enjoyed it. And of the non-fiction in this particular issue, I really enjoyed We Were All Trini, Searching for Asian American Mirrors in SFF by Sarah Kuhn. You know, I've watched a little bit of the Power Rangers. I actually quite like putting it on Netflix when I'm bored and don't want anything that I have to think about. It's one of those kind of shows for me. I saw a bit of it growing up, and a lot, but I really appreciated what Sarah Kuhn was saying about, you know, playing in the playground, and you know, you could only play this one character because it was the only character that looked like you. You know, I never really played those games in the playground, but I can kind of, you know, I grew up, you know, in my case, I'm not Asian American, but I grew up watching Star Wars and reading Star Wars, and my only real option was Leia, at least in the movies. So yeah, so that was really interesting. That was Uncanny Magazine issue 11. And then I decided in December to try and read a few things that were on my TBR pile, that were in my physical books. And so I pulled out a few short things and a couple of longer things. The first thing I read in December was Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. I wasn't sure if I'd ever read this, actually read it before. I've seen multiple movies, and I actually really love the Mia Wachowski movies, but I don't think I'd ever actually read the book. I certainly didn't previously own it until last year. And it was, in a way, I think I was too old for the actual book. It was a little bit of a disappointment. It didn't have the strong narrative that I'm used to from the movies, and it somehow wasn't as funny, and it was bizarre. I don't know. So it was kind of enjoyable to see what the actual original text is, but still kind of not something that I really would read usually. I think I'll stick to the movies, but I'm glad that I've read it now. Then next up in December, I read Illuminae by Amie, Kaufman and Kristoff. This is an Australian YA novel that is written in sort of as a file, a dossier, which is full of memos and emails and IM conversation transcripts and coding and things like that. It's big and it's fat, still pretty fast read. I'm not sure if I'm actually going to read the second one. It's good. I can see why so many people love this book. And it certainly was very gripping, but I actually came out of it with my heart pounding. It was so stressful to read. It was kind of terrifying, And I didn't really like the romance. A lot of people I've heard have talked about the romance and how awesome the romance and the characters are. I didn't really connect with either of the characters. So the romance fell a bit flat for me. So it was a good read and an intense read. Like, the plot is just, you know, it's one thing after another, and it's tense, and it's building, and it's building, and it's building. And then you get to the end, and there's a bit of a cliffhanger. Like a piece of information that's just kind of dropped at the end, and it's like, boom, this is a bomb. So it's good, but I don't think it's quite me. I'm not sure if I'm going to pick up Gemini because, yeah, it was a stressful read. And then after that, I picked up this gorgeous little book, which is called Irish Fairy and Folk Tales. Frankly, I bought it because I love fairy tales, and it's beautiful. It's like this beautiful green leather with gold and silver embossed all over it, and like the gold edged pages. Reading it wasn't great. A lot of the stories in there, they're stories that have been reprinted from the 19th century by various different writers, some anonymous, some are named. But a lot of them, I don't know, just lacked the narrative structure that I'm used to, I guess. There were kind of fragments describing a particular creature, but not really with the narrative that I'm used to from fairy tales. There are a few, towards the end, there are a couple of things that I really liked. I mean, it starts with The Fairies by William Allingham, which is a poem that I'm quite familiar with, and that I quite like. And towards the end, there was A Legend of Knockmany by William Carlton, and The Leprechaun or Fairy Shoemaker by William Allingham, which was a poem. Also, I think The Three Wishes by William Carlton. So both the two William Carlton stories, I think they were a little better, a little more narratively stronger. So it's probably not one I'll pick up and reread, but it could be a useful source for, you know, if I want to do a story of my own one day. Maybe, who knows, that involves like Irish creatures or Irish fairy tales. So I think it's a good reference for stories from Ireland. So there was that. And then the final book for December 2016, which I finished when I was at home with my parents, was Star Wars Aftermath by Chuck Wendig. I grew up reading Star Wars novels, and so this is one of the new ones instead of one of the ones that's now known as Legends. And it's set immediately after, it's the first book in a trilogy, I believe, and it's set immediately after the Death Star is destroyed at Endor in Return of the Jedi. Basically, Wedge Antilles, who is one of my favourite characters in the Star Wars universe, he's the leader of Rogue Squadron. He convinces Alliance Command that they need to go looking for information on what's going on in the Outer Rim, and he accidentally stumbles over a couple of Star Destroyers where they're not supposed to be, gets captured without being able to get a message out, which, you know, amused me greatly. As much as I love Wedge, it always amuses me when men become the damsel in distress. At the same time, one of the fighter pilots, whose name I am trying to remember, Nora Wexley, she's gone home to find her son because she hasn't seen her son in a long time. She left in search of her husband, who was taken by the Empire, and she was flying freighters for the Alliance and ended up flying a fighter at Endor. And she ends up on the same planet that Wedge has been captured on. And so it's about her and her relationship with her son and trying to balance her duty as a mother and her duty to the Alliance. And it's about the Imperials trying to, you know, figure out how to move forward. And there's a bounty hunter, and it's fun. It's a romp. Wedge is damseled, and yeah. And there's the end of it. I'm quite curious because there's a character at the end that isn't named and isn't described, but the way he spoke makes me a little suspicious. I might know who it is. So yeah, there's another 2 books, I believe. So I haven't picked up the second book yet, which is Aftermath Life Debt, I think. But yeah, it's a good old-fashioned Star Wars novel. I'm not quite as fond of it as I am of the old ones because I don't have that nostalgia feeling. I didn't grow up reading it, but still a good book. And it's got Wedge, and I love Wedge. And it's got Nora Wexley, who's the mother of one of the fighter pilots, her son Temmin. Here he's just like her teenage son, but in The Force Awakens, Snap Wexley is actually, you know, one of the fighter pilots. So, you know, we know he's going to survive at least. So yeah, Star Wars novel, really enjoyed that. So that was my December wrap up. Like I said, five books is pretty good for me. Although saying that, I will just give you a hint right now. I've already read 5 things and it's only halfway through January. The advantage of having time off. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know if you've read any of those books or if you're interested in any of them. Let me know what you've been reading and I will see you again soon. Bye.